The Ugly Duckling's Christmas Wish is quite a sweet film. This is an animated feature film from 1996. It's directed by Russ Harris and G. Brian Reynolds. It's written by G. Brian Reynolds with a voice cast including Alex Marshall Thompson as Omar and Ashley Zachary as Ruby. And this is a story about Omar and Ruby and how they both have the same kind of situation in life because they live in a world where they don't feel they belong. The beginning of this was really interesting. Omar's egg, before he hatches, is stolen, and then it travels a great distance. And I won't give away too much about how this happens, but I really liked the beginning of this. And then he hatches and is taken in by a family of ducks. And to begin with, we have the traditional Ugly Duckling story where we have the protagonist who looks rather different to his siblings, and the reason he's considered ugly compared to his siblings is because he has a very long nose. That is a very, beak rather, and he feels like he doesn't belong, and he wants to make a Christmas wish to find a place where he belongs. And on his journey, he meets a little girl called Ruby, who also doesn't feel like she belongs. She doesn't have her own place in the world, and they work together to try and find a better situation. And we also have a mouse who's in this. The mouse was a pretty sweet character as well. The characters are certainly very likeable. Omar, very likeable. Ruby, very likeable as well. The animation of the characters I really enjoyed, and the actual story itself was pretty interesting. It was a little bit, not dull as such, but I feel like I became slightly less interested as the narrative went on. I feel like this would have been better as a short. I think there are a lot of elements that we could have taken out of this to tighten up the narrative, and I think if that was the case, it would have been more emotional because we wouldn't have had as much downtime in between the more emotional scenes, whereas with this, it gets a little bit emotional, and then we have not necessarily padding as such. I don't think any of this didn't belong there. The story does flow quite well, but it wasn't as emotional as I feel it could have been. And I think that would have made it a bit more of an interesting and very moving experience. What we got was fine, but I do think it would have worked better if it was even just maybe borderline short, so let's say 35-40 minutes, but nevertheless it's not too bad, but I just think it could have been a little bit better. But in general, I thought it was a good concept, an interesting festive take on the story of the Ugly Duckling with some really likeable characters. The animation is not too bad at all. That's including the characters and also the backdrops, so I'm pretty happy. It may not be perfect, but the Ugly Duckling's Christmas Wish was still a decent animation. And if you're looking for a pretty sweet Christmas story, then I'd say it's one that might be worth checking out.